Is that on? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janababa Giri Bardari Jai Gopi Janabalabha Giri Bardari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Banachari Yamunatira Banachari Jaira Dhamadhava Kunjabi Hari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Hare Ramo Rama Rama Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Paravanikacharya Do Tarasata Shri Shrimad High Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Grantaraj Shrimad Bhāgavatam ki, Samveda Bhakta Vrinda ki, Gaur Premananda. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. What's that? Yeah, that one light's really loud today. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Gananjana Shalakhaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadammayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhunam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Eshvari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so we are on Canto 3, Chapter 27, text number 20 today. And Kvachit Vava Marshena Kvachit Vava Marshena Nivritam Bhayam Ulbanam Nivritam Bhayam Ulbanam Anivrita Nimittatvat Anivrita Nimittatvat Puna Pratyavya Puna Pratyavatishtate Puna Pratyavatishtate Kvachittatava Kvachittatava Marshena Nivritam Bhayamulbanam Anivrta Nivittatvat Puna Pratyavatishtate Please chant. Shena. Anivrita nivittatvat. Puna pratyavatishtate. Kvachit tatvavamarshena. Ulbanam. Anivrita nivittatvat. Puna pratyavatishtate. Vaishnavis. Kvachit tatvavamarshena. Nivritam bhayamulbanam. Anivritta nivittatvat. Puna pratyavatishtate. Kvachit tatvavamarshena. Nivritam bhayam ulbanam. Anivritta nimittatvat. Puna pratyavatishtate. Kvachit tatvavamarshena. Nivritam bhayam ulbanam. Anivritta nimittatvat. Puna pratyavatishtate. Kvachit, in a certain case. Tattva, the fundamental principles. Avamarshena, by reflecting upon. Nivrittam, avoided. Bhayam, fear. Ulbanam, great. Anivritta, not ceased. Nimittatvat, since the cause. Puna, again. Pratyavatishtate, it appears. Now, nobody happens to have a screwdriver, do they? This mic goes from like this to like this in about a few moments. It undoes itself, so it always points away from your mouth. But if we could tighten it with a screwdriver, it might take two screwdrivers. I'll probably have to do it from both sides. But you'll watch this. It's right now. It's pointing right at my mouth. In a couple of minutes, it'll be pointing like that. Okay, so we'll read the purport here. Material bondage. I'm sorry, I haven't read the translation yet. Even if the great fear of bondage is avoided by mental speculation and inquiry into fundamental principles, it may still appear again, since its cause has not ceased. So we can read responsibly. Even if the great fear of bondage is avoided by mental speculation and inquiry into the fundamental principles, it may still appear again, since its cause has not ceased. Okay, so here is the purport. Material bondage is caused by putting oneself under the control of matter. See, there it goes. It's gradually pointing away from my mouth again. Material bondage is caused by putting oneself under the control of matter because of the false ego of lording it over material nature. Bhagavad Gita 7.27 states, Ichadvesha samutena. Two kinds of propensities arise in the living entity. One propensity is ichcha, which means the desire to lord it over material nature, or to be as great as the Supreme Lord. Everyone desires to be the greatest personality in this material world. Dvesha means envy. When one becomes envious of Krishna or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one thinks, why should Krishna be all in all? I'm as good as Krishna. These two items, desire to be the Lord and envy of the Lord, are the beginning cause of material bondage. As long as a philosopher, salvationist, or Buddhist has some desire to be supreme, to be everything, or to deny the existence of God, the cause remains and there's no question of his liberation. It's going to take a flathead, not a Phillips. It's got just one blade. It's going to take two of them, I'm afraid. So we may not be able to fully be up and functional for this class, but in the future maybe we can tighten this little screw here. So here's the second paragraph. Devahuti very intelligently says, one may theoretically analyze and say that by knowledge he has become freed, but actually, as long as the cause exists, he is not free. The Bhagavad Gita confirms that after performing such speculative activities for many, many births, when one actually comes to his real consciousness and surrenders unto the Supreme Lord Krishna, then the fulfillment of his research in knowledge is actually achieved. There is a gulf of difference between theoretical freedom and actual freedom from material bondage. The Bhāgavatam 10.14.4 says that if one gives up the auspicious path of devotional service and simply tries to know things by speculation, one wastes his valuable time. Klishante kevala bodha labhyate. The result of such a labor of love is simply labor. There is no other result. The labor of speculation is ended only by exhaustion. The example is given that there is no benefit in husking the skin of an empty patty. The rice is already gone. Similarly, simply by a speculative process, one cannot be free from material bondage, for the cause still exists. One has to nullify the cause, and then the effect will be nullified. This is explained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the following verses. Kvachit tattvam vavavarshena nivrittam bhayam ulbanam atnivritta nimittat vat puna pratyava tishtate. Even if the great fear of bondage is avoided by mental speculation and inquiry into the fundamental principles, it may still appear again, since its cause has not ceased. The root cause of material existence or bondage in the material world is sometimes described as being sense gratification, sometimes being described as sinful desire or the seeds of sinful desire. And sometimes it's described as ignorance. These all three things are essentially just causes and effects or follow-on principles of each other. So, what can it mean that the root cause of material existence is ignorance? We are ignorant of what's worthy of actually being desired. So we desire the wrong thing. So that's how it can be ignorance or desire. And of course, because we desire the wrong thing, we engage in sense gratification. So these three things just follow one after another. If we don't know what to desire, we desire the wrong thing. We desire the wrong thing, we do the wrong thing. And that is engage in sense gratification. So this is how material existence works. Is it really that simple? And the answer is, yes, it really is that simple. However, although it's simple, we have conditioning to undo. What have we got here? They used to make these things. Yeah. No, it's not going to work. They used to make them so you could stick a dime in there and do it, but doesn't. That doesn't. That's recessed in. I don't think it's broken. It's just loose. That's the problem. I'll get two flatheads after this. We'll just have to live with me holding the microphone like this because it's going to do that, you know. So the getting back to the Bhagavatam here, the material energy, it acts on our repeated use or misuse of desire. So we learn in Vedic literature that there is a thing called the bija stage, the kutastha, the aparabdha and parabdha stage of sinful reaction. So when a person does a sinful action for the first time, there develops the first kind of negative result of doing a sinful action. By doing a sinful action, one gets a desire to do that sinful action a second time, a third, a fourth. So the first installment of being entangled in material life is doing a sinful action and getting the desire to perform that sinful action a second or third time. And that can be called the kutastha stage, or as Prabhupada put in one place, in stock. He calls it that in Bhagavad Gita, in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in stock. So a person finds that they want to do the same sinful thing over and over again. They didn't know it was sinful. They did it. They developed a desire to do it repeatedly. But there's still no parabdha karma. It's still aparabdha. Nothing has happened yet. So we're doing a sinful thing over and over and over again, but it appears nothing's happening. And that's the way karma works. Now, if a person is really practiced at doing the wrong kind of action, a sinful action, again and again, when they die and they take birth again, that sinful desire will still be within their heart as a seed, and that's called the bija stage. So a little child has all these sinful bijas of past life material desires and sinful action in their heart. But because they're a child, those things haven't sprouted yet. They haven't matured. But soon they will. With adolescence, suddenly we get the desire to do all these sinful things. You know, some people even, in their tweens, they're already, getting into alcohol and cigarettes and things like that. Those desires were there from a previous life. And so when they're around the opportunity, they're naturally attracted, and they do it, and boom, the sinful habit from a past life has now taken root in this life. And again, when the child is like 13 or 14, he may cough a little bit when he smokes, but no big thing. It's only later on when he's 30 or 40, after a whole lifetime of coughing, that the doctor calls him aside and says, "You have lung cancer." And then suddenly, boom, that is parabdha karma. The karma has now gone from aparabdha, unmanifest, to parabdha, manifest. So these sinful desires, seeds, can be carried from one lifetime to another lifetime to another lifetime. And we may have them hidden within our heart, but at a certain time, they just bubble up from nowhere, from the past, and suddenly we have an overwhelming desire to perform some type of sinful action. And of course, when we perform a sinful action, we get, first of all, it's upper of the karma. It doesn't happen right away, but we get the desire, we continue to do it, and finally we get the negative reaction. And that's the mature fruit of ill behavior. So just thinking about how material nature works, understanding some philosophical principles, even understanding Sankhya, just understanding it is not going to cut this cycle. The cycle will go on. Why is that? And that is because we are ruled by our emotions and desires, and for instance, our thought habits as well. So I think all of us have had the experience of wanting to do something and just not being able to pull it off for one reason or another, you know. Maybe we made a New Year's resolution that we're going to do something, you know, we're going to eat less, or we're going to chant more, or we're going to engage more in going out on Sankirtan or whatever. We make this determination. But, you know, that's January 1. And then by usually January 30, we found that it didn't stick for some reason. We had a determination, we wanted to do it, but we weren't able to pull it off. We think something, but there's a magnetic push from our emotions and our habits that pushes us in another direction. When you're driving a car and you turn the wheel suddenly to the left or the right, the car veers immediately to the left or the right. But when you're in a boat or an airplane and you turn the wheel to the left or right, you don't immediately go to the left or right. You just start drifting in a different direction. So we are not in absolute control of what our body does. Our emotions and our habits have an enormous effect on what our body does. And when we realize that, we begin to realize that we're up against what we always call, in Prabhupada's terminology, our conditional nature. We are conditioned to certain sinful actions that we were accustomed to do in either this life earlier or in a previous life. And we're accustomed to certain bad thought habits and certain thinking and certain desires that we have cultivated. And because we have those desires, we have those thought habits, we have that gravitational pull from our past, we only make some kind of progress. And that's why simply learning some kind of philosophy, whether it's even Sankhya or whatever other kind of speculative philosophy, it won't change things. It won't change things until we work at changing our behavior, changing those habits, changing those desires, changing that mental thought process. So the root cause of material entanglement or material life is ignorance. We don't know what's really going on here. We think we're in a place where we're surrounded by various opportunities for material enjoyment. That's what it looks like. The material world looks like a nice place with many types of material enjoyment just right at our fingertips. And all we have to do is reach out and grab them. That's what it looks like. But it's not what's going on. What's going on is we're surrounded by an environment full of things that can be used to serve God. And if we don't do that with those things, then we find that we become entangled. And eventually we become lost in material actions and reactions, in these buildup of sinful action, sinful desires. First it's unmanifested, then it becomes manifest, and we carry it from one lifetime to another. So, material consciousness is something, as Prabhupada quotes this verse, Icha Dvesa Samutena Dvanda Mohena Bharata. We are born, living entities are born into material life, overcome by Icha and Dvesha. So Icha, it's interesting. I think probably our modern English word itch comes from itcha, which means desire. It's oftentimes we talk about desires like itches, that we're itching to do something, So itcha is desire, but dvesha, it's Prabhupada in this purport says dvesha is envy of Krishna. Usually, dvesha is glossed as disdain or enmity, to be repulsed by something. So besides Icha Dvesha, we also have that other duality, Raga and Dvesha, attachment and envy. So usually Raga and Dvesha go together. We have attachment is Raga and Dvesha is repulsion. But still, Dvesha can be classified as envy, because instead of wanting to serve Krishna, we are actually kind of repulsed by Krishna, like Shishupal to some extent. We think, why does it have to be Krishna, as Prabhupada says in the purport? Actually, there was a time we were going door to door trying to do books in New Zealand. And I went to a apartment complex, and I knocked on the door. And kind of, 20-something-ish Indian man was living there by himself, and he had a computer, and he allowed me to come in, and I said, well, no, we're trying to explain about Bhagavad Gita and these various Vedic writings. And he said, when I was a little boy, my mother would always take me to temple. She would take me to the temple, and I would see this Krishna, and I would think, why does it have to be Krishna? Why can't it be me? And I was thinking, bang on, this is what we all think, but he was just saying it flat out, and he wasn't looking at the pages of Bhagavatam. It was his realization, why does it have to be Krishna? Why can't it be me? And that's actually what we're all doing. Sometimes we call this, affectionately, our God project. Our project in proving to the world that we are God. So I don't know about you, but my God project's not going so well. It's difficult to step into Krishna's shoes, and usually doesn't work very well. So it's only until we give up the God project and we step away from that whole viewing of things that we become released. So if we want the maw, the jaws of material nature, to let us go, then we have to cultivate this idea that I'm servant and that I should do everything for Krishna, and whatever I'm thinking, whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm surrounded by, I'm trying to use it for Krishna. The more we can do that, the better off we are, the sooner we will get released from this prison. The material world is a prison. It's sometimes called Durga. I think it was our Natavar who was saying that a couple of days ago or something like that, that we are locked in the prison. And we can be released, but by not only knowing Sankhya, but acting upon it. So we have to act with the right knowledge. So what Devahuti is bringing up here is a situation that we're all engrossed in. And that is when a person, Ichadvesha Samutena Dvandva Mohena Bharata, is a living entity, is pushed into illusion. How does it say it? I'm going to go there right away. O sign of Bharata, conqueror of foes, the living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. So we come out of the womb like this. And at least 99.999% of us do. We come out of the womb like this. We don't know that we're in a big trap. And as I say, we think we're surrounded by things that we can use for our enjoyment, but actually we're surrounded by things we should be using for the purpose of serving the Supreme Lord. We don't know that, so we use it for our enjoyment. So the first hurdle that we encounter is to recognize that it doesn't work to try to enjoy those things around us. There's so many things to enjoy. And we can try to enjoy them, and we usually sample this and we sample that. We try to enjoy this, we try to enjoy that. We try to enjoy so many things. And to some extent we do enjoy, or we think we do. Some extent we suffer. And we think that's what life is all about. Now most people never get past that. They always think that life is about material enjoyment. So if we look at Bhagavad Gita and we talk about the yoga ladder, we have, the bottom rung of the yoga ladder is called animal life. So that means one has no knowledge and acts completely for one's own personal sense gratification. That's animal life. Then above that we have karma kanda, where one accepts some regulation. We accept regulation because we know that if we accept regulation, we'll enjoy better. So a person does some karma kanda. Then there's karma yoga, which is a stage above that, where we accept regulation and we know that this is part of a divine process. Maybe we even know something about God. We may know something about God, but we don't know that the purpose of everything is to serve God. We still think that God is going to serve us, not the other way around. That by doing some pious activity, God will be favorable and he will serve us. So that's karma yoga. Then above that is jnana. Now, at the jnana stage, that's the first time a person crosses the first hurdle, and that is to think that this material world is a place for our material enjoyment. It seems like it, everybody thinks it is. Almost everybody you see on the street is convinced the material world is for our material enjoyment. But every once in a while, somebody comes to the realization that it ain't working, that we just don't enjoy, that no matter how much we enjoy, there's so much struggle and there's so much negative suffering that goes with it that it's hardly worth it. So a person who comes to that stage has crossed hurdle number one, which is the hurdle to think the material world is a place of enjoyment. Hurdle number two hasn't happened yet. Hurdle number two is that usually when they reach the jnana stage, then they start to think, oh, there's some mysterious reason or purpose behind the universe, some mysterious cause. And they go searching for that cause. And one speculates with this philosophy or that philosophy. And one reads various books, goes to various groups and meetings and joins various circles of people who discuss and practice some kind of very esoteric, hidden, secret understandings, because that person has at least come to the realization that material happiness is not a part of enjoying the senses. So they've given up that, so they've come to that, but they're at the second hurdle, which is what Devahuti is talking about now. That you think that there must be something more to the universe, but you don't know what that is. And you are searching. You may study various philosophies. And how many times have we thought that we had it all figured out, only to find out that we really didn't? And again, one thinks, oh, now I have crossed over this hurdle, but actually it didn't go away. It's still got its trap on my leg. I'm still caught. So that's what we're hearing about here. This is what Prabhupada's talking about. Just by imagining through some kind of speculation that we have become liberated, or we have crossed over certain kinds of material traps, or we have undone the bondage of material life. Just thinking that, or imagining that, or having some philosophy that tells us that, doesn't do the job. We know from our emotional level we have not. We know emotionally we're still trapped. We know by the fact that we can decide things and we can't actually follow through on them, that we're still caught. So, by acting in devotional service, we will eventually become freed. And that is true liberation. And that is why, we take to the process of devotional service. By performing service to Krishna, we are gradually released. And all these three things that I started off talking about, I've said that we are overcome by our emotions, we're overcome by our desires and our habit thoughts. Or that the causes of bondage are ignorance, wrong desire, and sense gratification. So our ignorance is destroyed by knowledge that we are servant of the Supreme Lord. Our wrong desire is destroyed by habitually trying to act in Krishna's service, by trying to respond by acting and using things that are in our circle, using it for Krishna's service. This curbs back the wrong desire. And then we find that the sense gratification and the karma that comes with it is being cut also, because devotional service destroys the karma, the reaction, the habit, and destroys our wrong thinking. So it is the only thing, it's the only thing that actually pulls us out. So, in the history of the world, we've had so many philosophers, and they've talked so many philosophies. And where are they now? I mean, who's a follower of Aristotle these days, or who's a follower of Hegel or of Kant? Where are they? And in the Vedas even, there are all these various philosophies. But Krishna says, Sarvadharma prityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. We give up these various petty philosophies and take to the one process that does it all, and that is bhakti yoga. But of course, when we come into contact with bhakti yoga, we find the same issue that we always have. We resist it. We have an aversion to it, the dvesha. But if we continue to engage in devotional service, that resistance will gradually fade, and we will find devotional service more and more attractive, to the point where we will find material behavior repugnant. We will find material desires and material thinking to be actually undesirable, which is probably, for most of us, at least me, it's the other way around right now. But that's what we hear, that if you climb the ladder of spiritual progress, you go from, nishta to ruchi, to taste, where it flips around the other way, where instead of being repulsed by Krishna, repulsed by devotional service, having to kind of pull ourselves into it, to being finally repulsed by material behavior and repulsed by those and things that are ignoring Krishna and attracted to Krishna instead. It flips around. So this also happens by constantly watching what the mind is doing, because the mind is the rudder of the ship. If the rudder of a ship turns, the ship will gradually go in a different direction. If the rudder is straight ahead, the ship will go straight ahead. So if we watch what our mind is thinking about and try to bring it back to Krishna, that is one way to get out of the material entanglement. Another way is by always acting for Krishna. That's another way to get out of the material world. And of course, both of those things, they cut down this fear, this entanglement in material life. So I want to stop here and then see if there are any questions or comments from the group here. So we have the mic all set up and ready to go.
Haribo Maharaj, you said there's two ways, constantly bringing your mind back to Krishna or acting for him, but they kind of sound like, even though there's the distinction you made, they sound like the same thing. Because if you're acting for Krishna, you have to be thinking about him, right?
Right.
If you're thinking about him, it's naturally going to come out in your actions. So what's the difference?
Well, actually, you can act for Krishna but not think of Krishna, that's kind of why, why Krishna mentions always think of me, and he also mentions, to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita that while engaged in fighting, always meditate on me, So both things are there. Because simply by moving the body, we can do what looks like devotional service to people on the outside, but actually it may be quite mundane for us on the inside. We may have a material motivation in performing that action. We may be doing kirtan so that we attract opposite sex. We may be doing kirtan, or we may be doing sankirtan so that we become well known in the society of devotees as a great sankirtan person. Of course, this is, on the external, it looks like devotional service, and it is devotional service in spite of the fact that it has this materialistic tinge to it. But if we're aware of the materialistic tinge, we try to remove that, we'll make progress much faster. Of course, the other thing is true too. We can think about Krishna but not do anything, and then our bodies are, kind of going to do an old number on us, because we're not actively engaged in devotional service. Most people are not sattvic enough to be able to pull that one off. So that's why we kind of have to do both ways. We work to always think about Krishna. At the same time, we do actions for Krishna. And that's why sometimes it's helpful to think, what am I doing right now? Why am I doing it? How am I doing it? How would I do it if I wanted to please Krishna? So if we ask those kind of questions, then we can start to refine not only what we're doing, but the attitude and the thinking that goes with it. Because the more we think about Krishna, the more our whole lives will start to gradually become purified. Does that make sense? Okay. So I bring these things up because Actually, spiritual life is simple as far as understanding what you need to do. What's not simple is doing what you need to do. That's what's not so simple. And again, the reason why it's not so simple to do is because we have this conditioning. Our emotions are set in the wrong way because of past life, and our thinking is wrong. We think in the wrong way, so we tend to veer off course. Our mental commitment may be to something, but because we are still strongly motivated by our past habits, our sinful desire seeds that are there in the heart, and also by our wrong desires. We may not even see them. They may be hidden from us. Sometimes that happens, that we have desires and we're acting on them, but we don't even realize that we are. And then one day, Krishna pulls the veil, and we go, oh my God, I've been doing that. Oh, then we feel embarrassed and we try to change it, And if we're continuing in Krishna consciousness, Krishna will pull the veils off of our realization. We'll start to see all the ways we are not Krishna conscious. And as we see more and more ways that we're not Krishna conscious, we will gradually attempt to rectify that. And as soon as we rectify one, we'll see some other way we're not Krishna conscious. It's kind of, don't expect to make it to being a pure devotee in a few weeks. It won't take quite so. It'll take probably a little longer than that to manifest. So as we go on in Krishna consciousness, we become more sensitive to the ways that we are not Krishna conscious. And also, I think, at least my realization is sometimes you become aware that some of the things that you thought were actually impossible in Krishna consciousness actually are not impossible. They're just difficult. And you have to work at them. And eventually you can at least you can start making progress there. You may have thought, well, some of these people may be able to do that. I'll never be able to do that. But as you go on in Krishna consciousness, you'll see that, well, maybe that's not so far off. Maybe I can at least start heading in that direction. And so Krishna will wake you up to the things you're doing wrong and the attitudes you have that are not quite right. And what helps is when your material desires start to fade. We all know that when your material desire fades from something, it's much easier to give it up, especially if it's something you shouldn't be doing. Probably the best example of this is, people who are non-vegetarians. If you try to convince a non-vegetarian about the effects of what they're doing, what those effects are on the animals, on the planet, no matter how much you can talk to your blue in the face. They come up with crazy, rationalizations why it's fine to have animals suffer just so you can have a particular taste. But the minute that they actually start to seriously consider the idea of becoming a vegetarian, then suddenly it's like the shutters fall off completely. Then they can see, oh, why can't I do it? Yeah, this all makes sense, So as long as one's attached, one can't give it up. It's the same with smoking or with anything else, that as long as you're committed to performing that wrong behavior, your ability to even mentally distance yourself from it is almost nothing. But the minute you start to develop a little detachment from it, which is what will naturally happen in the process of Krishna consciousness. As we progress in Krishna consciousness, we will find more and more our material desires will fade, and as they do, we will be able to take more decisively to Krishna consciousness. We'll be able to give up more things and to do things in the proper way, to connect with Krishna more. All right, so unless there's a final question, we will end here at almost the right time. Oh, we have a question over there. Can give the mic. Were you raising your hand for a question or something?
Hare Krishna, people. Thank you. Oh, excuse me. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Everyone. Blessings for the entire omniverse, for Krishna and Radharani and all the devotees. Forgive me, I haven't been here in a while. I'm just recently coming back from West Virginia after the death and translation of my mother. I had gotten married, and my wife was able to have a bunch of kids. I don't necessarily need to go in Rome now. And that brought me to New York City. I got a call from what I thought was my mother or my grandmother or my aunt, and I hear my uncle. And in my head, I think, oh God, who's that? Because usually with my uncle and my aunt and family, it's the yell out the window when we're playing whatever on the concrete, football for the eldest twins.
Is there a question here? Is this kind of going on like biography here?
Do you deal with what you were just talking about when you get tempted? Whether it's cigarettes, sexuality, or any of the things. I know what you said about that they are conducive of the fact that you're getting exposed to the material energy, Maya, or real getting exposed to it. And when homelessness or lack of money is in timing, everything waits till like the last second with Maya now, seemingly. I blessed you guys that they were able to give me prasadam the other night or so when I asked. But I got here too late because of the trains getting rerouted and the buses and everything else, last stop, etc. But I'm glad to be here this morning. All in Krishna's time. Thank you.
All right, Hare Krishna. All right, so we'll end there. Thank you all very much for your kind attention. All glories to Shrimad Bhāgavatam, all glories to the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. Hare Krishna.